Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Rotary Club of Gainesville meeting for today, July 21st, 2020. My name is Tom Collette, your Sergeant at Arms. As we are set to begin today, please guests and visiting Rotarians, please identify yourself in our Zoom group chat so we can identify you later in the program. If you are watching on Facebook Live, please register your participation by sending an email to info@rotarygainesville.org. Again, that's rotarygainesville.org. Also, if you can see me on the screen, I am wearing the highly coveted Rotary face mask. You can protect yourself and others while exhibiting your Rotary pride. We ask that you place orders for your mask today by July 30th. Depending on how many you purchase, $9, I guess, Matthew, for a single, or if you buy them in bulk, you can get them for $5.
No, we're committing to the bulk. We are committing to the
bulk.
bulk. They will be $5 each.
Okay, I appreciate that. So go to our DACDB webpage and order yours today. We begin, as we begin all meetings, in song, and we have a recording of our singing leader, Charlie Page, with My Country 'Tis of Thee. Take it away.
Welcome, Rotarians. Join me as we sing My Country 'Tis of Thee. My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring.
Thank you so much, Charlie, as always. And now, everyone, please place your right hand over your heart, and we'll do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. And now for our invocation today, I give you the one and only Laurie Vidal.
It's good to be here, and let's join our hearts in prayer. Let's pray. There is in the hearts of many of us here today a deep affection for the University of Florida. Generations of our families have attended and loved their experiences. Shine forth thy noble Gothic walls, thy lovely vine-clad halls. Our love shall never fail. It is a new day. With new challenges for our university and for our community, our nation, and our world. Thank you for the leadership you have brought to the University of Florida in Dr. Fuchs. May we embrace this opportunity to again commit to join hands with UF as a Rotary Club to pursue opportunities together that will be beneficial to all concerned, building goodwill and better friendships as two influential organizations in our community. We especially ask for wisdom today for all the parents currently making educational decisions, tough ones, for their children that might still change in the upcoming weeks, for educators facing new teaching dynamics. Give us all patience and tolerance and help us to realize we are being asked to change in order to remain the same in so many ways. We join our hearts together for such a time as we are currently facing, asking as King Solomon asked, that you might give us wisdom and knowledge that we may lead our people. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? We humbly ask for your guidance. We pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Laurie. And now we have some guests that we will introduce. I will start off by the list that I already have. Again, if you're just joining us and you are a guest today, please go ahead and identify yourself in the Zoom group chat. First, we have W.J. Rossi, who is a guest of Kurt Klein. A guest of T.J. Syke, we have Kim Barton. A guest of Barbara Hall, we have Kevin Thorpe. Two guests of Susan Crowley, Aaron Hoover, and Mark Kaplan. And today, visiting Rotarians, Becky Hunt and Billy Adkins. And we also have two folks who would like to make announcements of their guests. First, we'll start with Robert Mounts. Go ahead, Robert.
I'm introducing today Mr. Glenn Terry, who is shown in silver hair and white shirt under my name. He's a double gator, a retired attorney and public school teacher who's immigrated here from Miami. And he's already been out digging graves at Prairie Creek Preserve with Buddy Irby. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome. And our esteemed president has a few guests to announce at this time.
Thank you, Tom. I would like to have the pleasure of introducing some guests of mine. I'd love to say they were here for me, but I suspect mostly for today's speaker. First, my boss and Florida Market President of Millennium Bank, Suzanne Norris, is here joining today. Also from our team, Pat Messamello, VP and Branch Manager here in Gainesville in the building with me. And I'm trying to scan names, and I think maybe Bob Rye, Assistant Branch Manager, was going to try to jump in today here in Gainesville with us. And I thought I had some others. If I find them, I will circle back and introduce them later. But now I turn it back over to you, Tom.
Thank you very much. As I unmute here, we do have one announcement today. It is a service opportunity. It's a quick turnaround. Bread of the Mighty Food Bank, assembling pallets for the distribution of food to seniors in our community tomorrow at 10 a.m. until 12 noon. We already have 7 signed up, so we need 3 more. For this job tomorrow, you must wear masks, dress cool, and you'll have to move boxes of food varying in weight. So if you'd like to sign up for that, you can do that again tomorrow from 10 a.m. until 12 noon. Anyone else with an announcement, please type it in the group chat, and I'll give you just 15 seconds or so to do that. If not, we'll move on with our program. And thank you to TJ and Chad for Pache. I beg your pardon on the pronunciation of your name, TJ. Seeing none, let's go ahead and go to our president of our Rotary Club of Gainesville, Matthew Brady.
Thank you, Tom. And good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. Welcome to week 3 of our Rotary year, and thank you for still hanging in with me. I'm relying heavily on the awesome work that Jenny Van Hart is doing in arranging some amazing speakers. And today surely is no exception. But I'll leave that further introduction to Susan in just a few minutes. Some quick business and recognition of members. As club president, I have the honor to serve as chairman of the Rotary Club of Gainesville Foundation. Our area clubs nominate members based on the bylaws to serve on the foundation board. As many of you know, the foundation's primary responsibility is to organize and facilitate the Wild Game Feast, identify recipients each year, and make sure that we do the very best we can in providing that event, creating as much fundraising as possible to make the biggest benefit in our community. So, first of all, I want to announce, as president of the foundation, I will be announcing here your 2021 Feast Master, the amazing Colleen King. Colleen is no stranger to the feast, and I agree. Thank you, Barbara. I should. Let's give a round of applause because Colleen is no stranger to the feast. She is a worker. She is one that can organize. She can motivate. She has a heart of gold in general, but a heart for Rotary and a heart for this club, and I know that she'll do an amazing job. So by the bylaws, she's already on the board. So between her as president and myself as chairman, other officers are automatic, but we have 7 Rotarians that we propose that will sit on the board to represent our club in partnership with the other area clubs. So right now I'm going to ask Joe or Wes. We're going to pop up. So since we're not live, to do a vote, hand out, raise a hand, we are going to try a Zoom poll/vote. You're going to see 7 names that are presented. A simple click of yes or no should be able to, so I'm trying mine right now too, to do some voting. But here are the names. If you click too quick or having trouble seeing, the name of our club members to serve on the board will be Steve Elder, Steve Dalton, Linda Reinhardt, Jason Shank, TJ Pache, Ryan Thompson, and definitely not least, but bringing up the rear here in order is your co-mighty mermaid, along with King Neptune Dwight McKee, will be Lisa Mueller. So those are the 7 Rotarians that will serve on the board, along with other officers and other designated members from the other area clubs. Please click yes or no, yay or nay, and we will be able to move forward. And if there's any negative, which I surely doubt, we'll come back to that. But I think you all will find that, you know, we have a lot of questions of how the Seafood Spectacular and the Wild Game Feast will look this year. But I'm confident with these that we'll be serving, along with our other area club members, we will come up with a great plan, and we'll do the very best we can for the community. Now, moving on, at the last meeting of 2019-2020, I had the honor of receiving the gavel from past President Chad King. But I did not have the honor of providing Chad with his recognition plaque and gavel. I will now virtually present this recognition piece to Chad so that each of you can see. And it says, presented to Malcolm Charles King Jr., with appreciation from your fellow Rotarians for your dedication and service as our club president. President 2019 through 2020, Rotary Club of Gainesville, Mr. Chad King. So I will work on getting that to you, Chad, and or maybe I'll put my name on it and go ahead and assume the past president role. But sincerely, thank you again for your work in guiding this club through a very difficult time. And remember, you will always be the king. All right, more spotlight and recognition. Real quick, because I know we would like to get to our speaker, but recently, fellow Rotarian Jeannie Singer was named the 2020 Distinguished Prosecutor from the National District Attorneys Association. Yes, round of applause. We all know she's amazing. Congratulations as our guest speaker last week. You know, he reminded us that you Rotarians are awesome. And I say today, you, Jeannie Singer, are extra awesome. And I think we'd all agree. Final recognition. I had the privilege of speaking to our Rotary group last night, and a small but mighty group. And Courtney Evans, fiance of TJ Pache, in our club, and who we just voted as far as being on the board. He's on our club board, as well as the foundation. We'll be on the foundation board. It's his fiance, but Courtney led a group already right out of the gate. I mean, we've been talking about service and opportunities in our community, and they had an opportunity in joint collaboration with the Matheson Museum to clean up a section of the Sweetwater Creek Park. And they've, I think, had 2 work days that they've participated in over the past month or so. And they were quoting, and I lost my notes, but it was like over 200 pounds of trash they picked up. And as many of you know, that is a resource that flows into the Paynes Prairie and our resources, and that's amazing work. And our Rotaractors, they get it. They're working despite everything out there. They're taking the precautions, and they're doing things and making things happen. And so I just want to give them recognition and tell them I appreciate what they're doing, and I look forward to what we get to do as a club in the days ahead. Now I turn the screen over to our very own Susan Crowley to introduce today's speaker. Susan?
All right, thank you. And before I start with the introduction of Dr. Fuchs, I would like to point out we have Aaron Hoover on the call from the University of Florida from the President's Office. And also on the call is Mark Kaplan, who is the Vice President for Government Community Relations and my boss. So I know you'll welcome them in the Rotary way. And now for Dr. Fuchs. Kent Fuchs has been the president of the University of Florida since January 2015. During his tenure, he has set the university on a path to joining the top 5 public research universities in the nation and to becoming the nation's #1 university for comprehensive excellence. UF is working toward the goals through creation of 500 new faculty positions, the addition of advanced and beautiful university facilities, and through an ongoing $3 billion fundraising campaign. Previous to the UF presidency, Dr. Fuchs was provost of Cornell University. He has served in academic leadership positions and as a faculty member of electrical and computer engineering at Cornell, Purdue, and the University of Illinois. He is a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, and the Association for Computing Machinery. He has received numerous awards for teaching and research. In addition, and this is my addition to his official introduction, Dr. Fuchs is at the helm of UF at the most complex and challenging time in its history. Yet he remains gracious, caring, and thoughtful, and I'm very proud to work for him. Dr. Fuchs.
Thank you, Susan. And many thanks to President Brady and the Rotary Club of Gainesville for inviting me. It really is a privilege to be with you all and to come back and to speak with you all during this virtual lunch meeting. I last spoke to the club 2 years ago, and at that time you were celebrating your centennial anniversary. And I had an honor at that time of discussing your first president, the first president of the Rotary Club of Gainesville, Albert Murphy, who was also the second president of the University of Florida. And I talked about, at that time, 2 years ago, the influenza pandemic of 1918 and its dramatic impact on President Murphy, on the University of Florida, and on our city of Gainesville. And believe me, at that time, I had no idea when I last met with you what our community and planet would be facing 2 years later, indeed our own pandemic. In 1918, the University of Florida lost several students and a professor to the pandemic. President Murphy himself got sick, but the university recovered, our community recovered, and our community and the university went on to grow and to prosper, including the few years after the pandemic. President Murphy became one of UF's longest serving and most consequential presidents. He had a tenure of some 18 years from 1909 to 1927. There's even a statue of him on campus, and many of you have seen it, I'm sure. It's the only statue of a UF president, and knowing what I know now about pandemics, I think he deserved a statue. So although the university and Gainesville, and indeed our world, have been through this before, ours is a unique time in history. We're making history, and it's not just about COVID. I have organized my brief remarks to you around 3 different years in the history of our community and of our nation. The first year is 1968. That was when there was a great deal of social unrest, which I remember even though I was in middle school at the time. And then 1929, which was the start of the Great Depression. And then which I don't remember, but I read about. And then 1918, the flu pandemic. And incredibly, right now, in 2020, we are experiencing all 3 of those years combined into one, 2020. So in reverse chronological order, 1968 was the year, for those of you that indeed are my age or maybe even more senior, it was the year of the Vietnam War protests, the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy, and the Chicago Democrat Convention. And the social upheaval of that year is mirrored in some sense in the social upheaval of this year, as is made clear by what we've seen nationwide and in some sense worldwide around Black Lives Matter protests. We've reached a tipping point where the majority of Americans have decided that violence and racism of all forms against Black Americans cannot be tolerated, and that the police and our society have to change. So for me, this historic moment has been an opportunity also for higher education and the University of Florida. And it's been an opportunity to do two things. First is to reflect as a university, and then 2, to take some steps, to take some action that I believe will be steps toward fighting racism. William Faulkner wrote, quote, "The past is never dead, it's not even past." And we at UF live and work in the context of a university that was founded here in Gainesville in 1906, but it was founded exclusively for white men. And we didn't admit women until 1947. And then we admitted the first African-American students in 1958. In a message to our campus just last month, I pledged that indeed we would take steps, small steps, but steps to confront these unacceptable parts of our history that are not even past, like remain on and linger. And a number of those steps are symbolic, but for universities in particular, symbolism can be really important. And this includes things like monuments and namings, the use of prison inmates in agriculture fields, or even controversial cheers, athletic cheers. Our steps that I announced are going to be tied to our mission as well of education and scholarship and engagement with our society. We've committed, for example, to scholarly documentation of our university's history, especially as connected to African Americans and Native Americans. And we've committed this coming year to sponsoring research on racism and having courses with special speakers that will focus on the African American experience at our university and our nation. And then finally, we've committed to redoubling our efforts to make a positive difference in our community of Gainesville and Alachua County, particularly in the lives of those less fortunate. In a 2018 report that was issued about our community, which I know almost all of you have seen and read, that was entitled Understanding Racial Inequity in Alachua County, we learned a lot through that report. And I'll mention as an aside, our own Susan Crowley was really instrumental in making that report a reality. So we all, including UF, I believe, have a responsibility to make a difference addressing those inequities. Everything from what we pay our lowest paid employees to how we work to provide new economic opportunities for all members of our community. You all, I could continue on for the whole time just discussing how in 2020 we're facing our own 1968, but I have 2 more years I also want to briefly discuss. My next year is 1929, the year the Great Depression started. Our nation, our state, and our community right now have seen a significant economic downturn since the pandemic struck, with unemployment rising, with businesses struggling or shuttered, and with growing demand for food and other basic needs among our residents. We're optimistic and hopeful that we're not going to have a Great Depression, but we are facing real economic challenges. At the University of Florida, we've invested more than $40 million of our reserves to keep employees employed and to address the pandemic. We've also received help from the federal government in the form of aid, for example, for our students that has gone to them and to their families to assist them. And at the state level, we've received really strong support in the budget that was just signed by Governor DeSantis this past month. And it's good news, and we're grateful to our elected officials and to Governor DeSantis for that budget. However, as we all know, the state is facing economic challenges, and the state has found it necessary to hold back 6% of its operating budget for this year. That impacts the University of Florida, that impacts Santa Fe College, and all those that receive operating funds from the state. Several months ago, we put a pause on hiring at the University of Florida. Not laying off employees, but putting a pause on replacing employees. And that is shrinking indeed the number of employees that we have on campus fairly significantly. We don't know from an economic and budget perspective what lies ahead, but we all are going to do what we can to protect our employees and our students as much as possible. But we do know that the pandemic is having an impact. My third year is 1918, and that brings me to indeed the influenza pandemic of 1918 and what we're facing today. In 1918, the influenza pandemic killed tens of millions of people worldwide. And according to historical accounts, about 140 students at the University of Florida became sick with the flu in the fall of 1918, and that amounted to about 1/3 of all the students at the time. Floyd Hall was converted into a makeshift hospital. Mothers in Gainesville joined volunteer Red Cross nurses to treat the sick students. And in the end, several students and indeed a faculty member succumbed and died from the influenza. But most of the people indeed recovered. Now, COVID, fortunately, is not as deadly. It does not cause as many fatalities worldwide or in our nation or in our community as the 1918 influenza, but it is no less serious. We're all of us, I know, are laser focused on working to keep the virus in check and operating as safely as possible, particularly at the University of Florida, as many of our students we know are coming back for the fall. Masks and physical distancing are going to be required and already are required in all of our occupied UF buildings. They're required outside on the University of Florida campus if you can't maintain physical distancing. We've also enhanced sanitation, including providing hundreds of hand sanitation stations across campus. We really have a distinct advantage at UF, but also in our community, in that we are one of the very few universities in the entire nation that owns its own world-class hospitals. And we have an academic health center associated with that. The result of that is that in our community, we have faculty and staff who are world experts in epidemiology and public health, and they're leading in the global search and research for vaccines, therapies, and modeling the impact of COVID-19. These incredible healthcare resources and talent are at the heart of our own plan as we attack the issues surrounding COVID-19 and implement procedures and requirements. This includes what we're calling our cornerstone Screen, Test, and Protect program, which is our tool to reduce the spread of the disease among students, faculty, and staff, and in our community. And for me, the key element of that program, screening, testing, and protecting, is the prevention piece. Wearing masks, as I've seen here on Zoom with some of you, physical distancing, as we're experiencing with this electronic media, and hand washing, hand sanitation, as well as staying home when sick. We will both encourage and also enforce these practices amongst all employees and all students. And we're collaborating with the city and the county really closely on a daily basis, focused on healthy student behaviors and employee behaviors off campus as well as on campus. Testing is another important part of that equation. Screening, testing, and protecting. We've tested nearly 20,000 employees as we've cleared them to come back to work on campus. And we started bringing employees back that had left, that were in lockdown and self-isolation back in May. We've distributed more than 750,000 disposable masks, and we have about 23,000 cloth masks that we've distributed to employees and thousands of gallons of hand sanitizer. All students that have been off campus that are returning back to our community are required to complete a screening process, with testing required for those that work with vulnerable populations, and those that any student that requests to be tested will be tested. And through all of that process, this procedure that we're calling Screen, Test, and Protect, we're also coordinating quarantining for those that test positive or those that have had real close contact with those who test positive. And we have set aside considerable number of rooms and portions of our residence halls for the quarantine process. Well, I'm obviously not an epidemiologist, I'm an electrical engineer, but I expect that we all will be living and working with COVID-19 for the next 12 months until probably the summer of 2021. It just seems like forever. But if we can keep that pandemic and its worst impacts on our community at bay, I really am optimistic for an exceptional year ahead as we start at the university our academic year this coming month. While plans for many things are still uncertain, including things that are important like fall football, remarkable things continue to happen at the University of Florida in the midst of COVID-19. In the next hour, I'll be joining a press conference with Governor DeSantis, a press conference that's being hosted here at the University of Florida, and others, that will announce a very significant gift. And this gift is going to launch a partnership between the University of Florida, right here in Gainesville, and a major Silicon Valley company that's related to artificial intelligence, teaching and research, and creating what we're calling the AI-enabled workforce. In a town hall Zoom meeting that we hosted with our faculty and staff last week, I challenged all of our university community members to raise the level of excellence of everything we do this coming year. higher than it was a year ago before we had COVID-19. And that includes the excellence of the teaching that our faculty will be engaged in with the students, the scholarship of the faculty and those that are engaged in the research enterprise, as well as those in the clinical enterprise and those that have outreach to our community, such as our extension agents. I'm really optimistic that we'll be able to do that we'll figure out not only how to be safe, all of us in our community, but how to continue to make a real difference and use this year to achieve new heights in our core things that we do. I began my remarks by sharing that 1968 was a year of deep social unrest, and 1928 was the start of the Depression. 1918 was the year of the last pandemic. But I want to end by noting that in each of those years, and shortly after, many wonderful things happened. For example, after the pandemic of 1918, the University of Florida experienced one of its periods of greatest growth, both in terms of students and faculty, as well as excellence of the university, shortly after that pandemic. I'm just so optimistic, you all, that future generations are going to look back on the year of 2020 and look back on us, and we'll recognize the great achievements of not only the University of Florida, but all of the members of our community. Perhaps these historical achievements will involve path-breaking science that's now emerging around the defeat of COVID. Perhaps it'll be historic achievements that'll address inequities and racism. But whatever it is, I believe that 2020 and at least the beginning of 2021 is going to be a challenging year, but a great year. You all, it's really a privilege to be a part of the same community as you all, and that you all allow me to come back periodically and talk about University of Florida and this community that we all love. It's been a privilege and a pleasure, and I think we have some time now for Q&A if that's appropriate, and I'll let one of you all moderate it. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Fuchs, yes, thank you very much. Round of applause. It's always a pleasure to have you here to speak with us. One, is an honorary member of the club, but two, is a great leader of the University of Florida. Tom stepped away for a minute, so I will announce, if you have questions, please type them in the chat box and we'll moderate and bring those questions to Dr. Fuchs from there. As questions are being entered, I'll say to you, thank you for your commitment to the University of Florida and also to our community. It's apparent that your love for the university is equal to your love for the community and your passion and dedication. The theme for this year is Rotary Opens Opportunities. So, I do want to send you this theme coin in recognition.
Thank you.
It is a very simple coin, but as I listened to you today, I heard many things that we've been talking about as Rotarians. Is we've got many challenges today, but what do? Are they opportunities? And yes, I think you continue to show that in your role, in your leadership, that you're taking these challenges and making them opportunities to be greater for the University of Florida and also greater for our community. And for that, we are most appreciative of you. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm going to look over here to the chat and see. Sure is not easy, as easy as walking around with a mic. So we'll look. So any questions, please type them in.
And I am back on with you, Matthew. Sorry about that brief interruption.
Very good. You're here. I'll let you take monitoring of the questions. I'm not seeing any yet. I think Dr. Fuchs did his usual amazing job of covering everything.
Mm-hmm. Here's one for President Fuchs. Let me read over quickly. It's a long question, so bear with me, President Fuchs. Currently, the reproduction infection rate for COVID in Florida is over 1.0. In epidemiologic terms, this means the virus continues to spread quickly. The screen test and the protect system is great. What will happen when students from all parts of Florida return to Gainesville to live together in their apartments, when 4 out of 10 people who spread the virus are asymptomatic? How can we truly protect the faculty, many of whom are older, have underlying medical risk factors, and/or are pregnant? That comes from Ricardo Gonzalez Rothi.
I was reflecting on how many of those characteristics of the faculty applied to me until we got to the pregnant part. This is the number one issue, you all. We're just laser focused on. We've set aside, the economics of the university that it's facing. We've set aside other things, and what we care about are just the following. Number one, that the community, and that extends beyond our borders and students and faculty and staff, but the community is as safe as possible. Secondly, for us, it also means that the students themselves are making progress on their courses and their education. It's important for the rest of their lives. And then thirdly, and I talked about this, that we keep as many of our employees employed as possible. I've been very proud of how people have made sacrifices on campus, giving up sick leave and other things to help their colleagues. But number one, obviously, is the health. And I'm not an epidemiologist, but I do believe there will be an increase beyond what we've seen in positive tests for COVID as lots of students come back. And first off, you all, I'm sure know that a good number of our courses are going to be online. And we're already experiencing in the last week that we're experiencing that, I'll be brief here, that many students have decided that they're actually not going to come back to campus. So we've had a number of cancellations in the past week. But we believe a number of them are tired of living at home with their parents, and the parents are tired of them being at home, and they're going to come to campus. So for faculty, if they're teaching online, then they're not going to be exposed as directly. We're providing faculty and any staff that have interaction with student in a face-to-face basis, PPE, so they'll either have an N95 mask or a face shield, just all kinds of ways of protecting them. And I believe what we have learned, you all of us, in the past 4 months is how we can remain safe beyond just in a lockdown, how we can be safe going to our grocery store, being safe and taking care of the business. And I believe we'll figure out, because of the flexibility we have, which is not, we have more flexibility than K through 12 has. I believe we'll be safe in accomplishing our mission of teaching and educating and actually research as well.
Dr. Fuchs, our next question comes from Jay Nordquist. How many students does the University of Florida expect to be on campus this fall?
We don't yet have a good number. If you had asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said almost all of them. Even if they had selected a curriculum that was all online, that they wanted to be back in the Gainesville area. We've seen a good number of cancellations in the residence housing in the past week, mainly because we gave them a deadline of this week. So right now, all I can say is there'll be a good number that will be in our community. So how close that is to roughly 54,000 or so that we would normally have in the fall, we don't yet know. And the news that we've all been seeing in the past week or so, I think, has discouraged some students from coming. So I think the news of the next 4 weeks will be a big factor in terms of how many come.
How has this pandemic affected the role of international students coming to the University of Florida?
International students, you all, particularly at the grad level, are just so important for our nation. They come. I'll say what most of you know, that they come either to get an education and go back to their own home countries and do wonderful things, or they come and then they become immigrants and do incredible things around it and contribute to our economy. So I just feel passionately how important international students are. They're facing two challenges. One is, the fact that almost all of them, no matter where they're going, are going to have to be in quarantine for a couple of weeks. Currently, that's the case in some states, even if you move between states. And then secondly, just the challenges that they may have in terms of their own country they're coming from, and some of them are facing visa challenges. So we're expecting probably a greater impact on our international student population. And the only caveat I would give there is that many of them at the graduate level never left, and they've actually stayed on our campus. They've been here from the beginning. Thousands of them have been on the campus because they're PhD students or they're master students, and so there'll be an impact, and probably a greater impact, either them deciding to delay for a semester or possibly just have an online curriculum for the fall.
Dr. Fox, our next question for you comes from Eric Spivey. What have you personally learned about leadership during this pandemic challenge?
I continue to learn, as I think we all are. I remember it was, I forget the month because they're beginning to all blur together, but it was probably in the month of March. One of the vice presidents came to me and he says, Kent, it's interesting how you have, your leadership style is changing. And what he was saying was that two things. Number one, I was becoming a little bit more direct and forceful in, quote, issuing orders, which I don't like to do, but felt was necessary. And then he was also saying that he liked the old Kent better than the new Kent. But sometimes you got to adopt and change.
Interesting. I'll follow up with a question of my own in regard to that. How have you involved student body leadership with your decisions?
So we have a tradition at the University of Florida that is richer than any place I've worked before at a university, of having real strong, what I'll call student governance. And that includes a student government senate, a judicial branch, as well as a student body president that's actually on the board of our trustees. So he in some sense, or he or she is my president as well. And those groups have been very, very involved. We are, an example of that would be in our social media efforts to influence student behavior. We have learned so much and are learning and are counting on not just the student governance, but on social pressure and influence from each other between the students to help in probably one of the most important areas, and that's just how the behavior of students when they're not in class or when they are off campus, I should say. So it is, in the end, those that are charged with making decisions have to make the decision. And as I think we've all experienced in the area of COVID and this pandemic, everyone has strong passions, a lot of emotions. And so in the end, I know that there are many decisions that I have to own for better or worse. But taking input has been something we've really welcomed and have counted on.
Again, for folks who'd like to ask Dr. Fox a question, please type those into the Zoom group chat. It's a rare opportunity to have Dr. Fox with us here in this forum. So please, if you have a question, please ask it. And since we don't have any, I'll ask another one, Dr. Fox, because I asked this to Dr. Alexander, King Alexander, who's now at Oregon State, a childhood friend of mine, and he was with us a month ago. How do you see the president's role in the resumption of athletics, especially when a lot of people are talking about football, where it seems the conference leaders are the main driving force with the return of football specifically in the athletic landscape? And we wish Scott Strickland well as well.
Yeah. Well, we're blessed, you all, to have Scott as our athletic director, and obviously before him the legendary Jeremy Foley. We also have, and I would say this even if it wasn't such a large group, we're really blessed to have a commissioner for the Southeastern Conference, Greg Sankey, that is just incredibly thoughtful. So first off, a comment about King Alexander, who, as you all know, was a former president of LSU. I wish he was still there, because we're scheduled to play them this year, and it's scheduled to be here in Gainesville. So I'm going to be heartbroken if that game doesn't occur, because it's time for us to beat LSU. The presidents are going to make the final decision on, not athletic directors and not the commissioner, about what college athletics will look like in terms of both schedule, in terms of fans, and in terms of protocols. Now, obviously, we're not in the midst right now of looking at different scenarios but we will take a vote on that, and in the end, each university will decide whether they want to participate or not. And I know just because of the weekly Zoom meetings that I have with the commissioner of the STC and with the other presidents, that we've made no decisions yet, and we're not even discussing any possible things to vote on regarding what the fall schedule will be like. But I do expect we've set up a deadline of the end of July as a tentative deadline for making a schedule around things. For example, do we just play opponents that are in the conference or out of the conference? And some of the conferences, as you all know, such as the Big Ten, have announced they're only playing teams in their own conference. So it will be one of those things where the presidents have to own the decision in the end. And I think that's the right thing. It's not the athletic directors and it's not the commissioner in the end that'll have to own, again, the schedule, the protocols, and issues around fans.
Thank you, Dr. Fox. Our next question comes to you from Naomi Williams. Are you aware of which medical laboratories at UF Health are performing the COVID-19 testing? Any other areas, UF Health Pathology Laboratory, Shands Laboratory?
Yeah, this is one where I'll probably ask Susan Crowley to follow up. There are two parts to this. One is the actual testing that is taking place, and that is being led by Dr. Mike Lizardo, who is, his area of expertise is this area, not COVID-19, but public health diseases such as tuberculosis. And so we are fortunate to have him. And then we have another doctor, Dr. Nicole Iovine, who is epidemiologist and is actually involved in leading some of the trials for some of the vaccines that we read about, and that's being done even in our own community. But there are a lot of other labs that are working on addressing therapies, on addressing vaccines and new test possibilities. And as you all know from the news, there are a lot of things that may come through in the matter of months that'll be significant.
Our next question to you comes from another gentleman with a great name, from Kent Walker. How will everything affect fraternity and sorority rush, the Greek community? How has it impacted them?
Yeah, it's going to have an impact. We've asked every one of our Greek organizations, particularly those with houses, to tell us, and
Dr. Fox, you're muted.
oh my goodness, thank you.
Yes, sir.
What I said was wonderful, you all. Okay, I'm sorry.
I believe it.
Okay, I won't try to summarize it just because of time, but I was going to say that sorority and fraternity, pledging, rushing, all of that is going to be quite different this fall, and it's being overseen by our new vice president for student affairs, Dr. Deandra Mull, who we stole from Ohio State. So there's going to be a portion of this that's virtual, a portion of it that will follow all the social distancing and masking rules. And I think the bottom line is what we've committed to our students is that they will have a rich student experience. It'll be different, but a rich student experience. So whether it's the libraries, whether it's a recreational center, whether it is their favorite activity, they're one of the 1,000 different organizations that they can be a member of. It'll be rich, but different. And how to do that, that's exactly they're being working on and finalizing over the next few weeks as students come back next month.
Dr. Fox, that leads me to a question sent in my private chat. And it was asking, if not already, is the university encouraging students explicitly to follow health guidelines, both on and off campus? And the question was presented, what steps are being presented to help encourage students to do so?
Yeah, that's important, you all, and in fact, the entire system the state university system, all 12 universities are launching a campaign as we speak. I just saw some of the draft publicity around it that will encourage students the 2 weeks, the 14 days before they come back to campus, that they self-isolate. So not a formal quarantine, because they don't technically need that for almost any of them if they don't have symptoms or haven't tested positive. But we would like them, we're asking them, we're requesting of them that they self-isolate, stay at home, in other words, don't go out. And so not just practice the best practices of health, but actually self-isolate for the 2 weeks before. We're not going to require, I'm sorry, following the rules, but we are asking them to do that. And I don't know how much, it turns out if my pointer's over the mute, it mutes it, which I didn't realize. I thought I had to click.
It was very brief, very brief.
Okay.
Yes. Everyone, please join me in a great big Rotary round of applause for his appearance today for us, to the President of the University of Florida, Dr. Kent Fuchs.
Thank you all.
Thank you again, Dr. Fox. You are a tremendous leader at the university and a valued asset in our community, and we're very thankful to have you continually. Maybe it's been 2 years, but I like it every year when you come and speak and share with us, and I thank you again for that. Much appreciated, and a great message today. And before I ring the bell and give a quote, I want to reminder this nice face mask that Tom Collette's wearing. You'll have an email in your inbox by 1 p.m. with a link. You can order and pay for those, as many as you would like. That's there. Any issues, let me know. Glad to help. Maybe we can not all be as dashing as Tom Collette, but we'll look good in them. So speaking of Tom, today's quote is from Tom, this dandy here. The difference between school and life. In school, you're taught a lesson and then given a test. In life, you're given a test that teaches you a lesson. From Tom, we'll leave the light on for you. Bode. And thank you all very much, fellow Rotarians. Go be awesome in the week ahead. Have a great week.